Hello everyone, welcome you all to today's discussion on an important essay written by Mary Wollstonecraft. The name of the essay is A Vindication of the Rights of Women. So, you can see in the title of the essay itself that it will engage with the critical discussion of women and their rights. Okay? And also the word vindication, it represents the action or the process of clearing someone of any kind of allegations or blames or suspicions. So definitely Mary Wollstonecraft is here with this essay to take up rights, to take a stand for the rights of the woman, and also it's an awareness towards the rights of women. So let's begin. Mary Wollstonecraft makes a passionate argument in this essay for what? For women's rights, okay? And she claims women have been easily oppressed because of the limited education available to them. And she makes a forceful argument for the ways of all of society will benefit from furthering educating women. So Wollstonecraft critically observes as well as opines, okay, and argues that women are lacking of their knowledge or of deserving rights only because of some lack of education. Women are provided so minimal education or limited education that they are not even aware of the rights and wrongs, justice and injustice. Okay, so the term vindication in the title, a vindication of the rights of women, it means proof something is right or correct. Wollstonecraft believes that her work will prove that the women have the right to education. So, very strongly, you should remind that this particular essay written by Mary Wollstonecraft is an awareness to the rights of women, especially in the context to right to education. Okay, according to Mary Wollstonecraft, women should be educated so that they are aware about their rights. So let's try to understand how Mary Wollstonecraft begins her essay. Before we proceed, let me make it clear that this particular discussion on the essay Vindication of Rights of Women is engaged only with the analysis of chapter 1 and chapter 2, considering the syllabus of the students of Dibrugarh University. So this particular discussion will engage only the discussions of chapter 1 and chapter 2, but nevertheless the entire essay talks about the rights of women. So definitely it is not a hindrance to have a grab towards understanding of the essay. This essay talks about the rights of the woman, specifically about the right to education. Okay, so we will start with Mary Wollstonecraft's introduction of the essay. So can you see that Mary Wollstonecraft begins with a note which is directed to French statesman Charles Maurice de Talleyrand-Périgord. In short, you can say M. Talleyrand, okay, who wrote extensively about the rights of man. She hopes her work will encourage him to consider his thoughts on the education of women, and she says women must be better educated to continue the advance of society. So in the very beginning of the essay, she made it very clear by directing towards French statesman who is named as M. Talleyrand, and she believes that her work will encourage this person called M. Talleyrand to reconsider his thoughts on educating women, because according to Mary Wollstonecraft, it is the education which will help the society to advance. Also, women can progress with the advance of the society. So that's why Wollstonecraft argues in this essay, I quote, if the abstract rights of man will bear discussion and explanation, those of women by a parity of reasoning will not shrink from the same test, I unquote. So through this particular extraction, you will find how Wollstonecraft argues in the context that if man can, receive education rightfully, women can also, surpass the similar test. So she challenges him, that means M. Talleyrand, to prove women are lacking in reason Otherwise, she claims the new constitution of France will ever show that man must in same shape act like a tyrant. That means Wollstonecraft defiantly or boldly, you can say, challenged this French statesman M. Talleyrand that, all the time when M. Talleyrand only discusses about the rights of man, why doesn't he discuss about the right of woman? Because it is a matter of consideration. Because according to Wollstonecraft, women can also go through the similar education, similar test, and let them first receive the education and then decide whether women lack reason or not. But without providing education to the women, how can the society decide that women lack in reasoning? So that is her argument. So according to Wollstonecraft, men and women should be at the same page, should be on the same page of education. No one should be judged, without being given the platform or opportunity of receiving education. And she believes that it is a right to educate women. Clear? Wollstonecraft applies the principles of French Revolution to women seeking freedom for women, just as the French people earned their freedom from the monarchy. So you can see the influence of French Revolution in this essay. Wollstonecraft took it as an advantage, and she sought freedom for women, just like French people gained freedom from the monarchy. She specifically dedicated the second edition to M. Talleyrand, whom she met during her during his work on behalf of France. So she has a close connection or association with Talleyrand in context to the demand of education of women. So Talleyrand, as we all know, was a French statesman and a former bishop, definitely a man in power. So during the revolution, we are talking about French Revolution, okay? Talleyrand spoke forcefully about the need for equality among citizens. So Talleyrand was a French statesman and a man, in a powerful official. So during the French Revolution, Talleyrand, he made up a point. He spoke forcefully about the need for equality among all the citizens. He was also known to frequently change his position on crucial issues. Wollstonecraft may have had this in mind when she wrote to him, because Talleyrand has constantly spoke about about equality and rights. So she kept this in her mind and she spoke to him in these regards. England and France have a long and difficult history between them, and many powerful people in England at the time disapproved of French Revolution. So Wollstonecraft did not disapprove in this moment. However, she did object to the hypocrisy of Talleyrand and many others who set women off to the side as they campaigned for equality and freedom for all citizens, but really only all for men. So what is the objection of Wollstonecraft here is that, all the man is fighting for freedom, no doubt, but only for men and not for women. Okay, so they were campaigning for equality, for freedom, for all citizens, but really only for men. And that was her point of objection. Let's proceed and try to have a look in our next few major highlights. Where can you see? Wollstonecraft begins chapter 1 with general principles. She believes the reader will accept. Okay, she has a strong belief that her points will be accepted by her readers, and that's why she identifies reason, virtue, knowledge as the elements that distinguish the individual. Please pay a careful observation to this particular highlights. It's quite important. Okay, why? First thing, she begins the chapter 1. Okay, how? By, by putting out an appreciation that her readers will understand her. It's an acceptance, it's an appreciation for her readers. It's a very intellectual way of beginning an essay. Okay, then she identifies some of the attributes which distinguish individual. What are the attributes? Can you see? Reason, virtue, and knowledge. She acknowledges many flaws in the society of her time. Okay, included, even the servile flattery afforded to hereditary honors, riches, and monarchy. So basically, first, in the very beginning of the chapter 1, she first acknowledged all the loopholes, all the drawbacks, and flaws in the society of her time. And she says that these things led philosopher Jean-Jacques Rousseau to condemn society and embrace solitude. She mentioned a philosophical thinker, Rousseau, that because of these loopholes, these drawbacks, Rousseau, philosopher like Rousseau has condemned society and embraced solitude. In the second hand, Wollstonecraft made a strong disagreement with Rousseau. Can you note how cleverly and how intellectually she has placed her points? At first, she gave an opening appreciation remark for her readers. Then, she has identified some of the important attributes as how we can distinguish individuals such as reason, virtue, and knowledge. Then, she has, addressed the loopholes. She acknowledges the loopholes of the society of her time by mentioning one of the thinkers, renowned thinkers such as Rousseau, that these are the loopholes because of which Rousseau condemns society. And then she has placed her disagreement with Rousseau. So let's see what is the point of argument with Rousseau. Okay, she claims she claims his arguments, that means Rousseau's arguments, were in favor of state of nature and are plausible but unsound. She agrees with his rejection of the artifices of aristocratic society, but she also objects to Rousseau's celebration of savagery. Wollstonecraft notes that Rousseau does not claim living as a savage produces any particular virtues. Rousseau goes against God, she insists, and she prefers to trust in God rather than Rousseau. And the solution that she finds here is the establishment of true civilization. She claims rather than Rousseau's idea of a society of man in his state of nature. So let's understand what does she argue here. She argues by saying that Rousseau believes in returning back to nature, in the favor of state of nature, where everyone will be under the will of nature. Okay, there will be no social will. So she agrees with the rejection of the artifices of aristocratic society, that means elite society, but she objects to this celebration of savagery because we all know nature is savage because nature is raw, it is unfiltered, right? In nature, you can see no rules, no objections, no boundaries in comparison to the rules, objections, or a social decorum or a maintenance in the society, right? Because that's why we human beings, we are what? Social animal. We are regarded as social animal. We are compared to the wild animals, right? So we are not going into that context of discussion now, but let's understand that first thing, Wollstonecraft claims that his arguments in favor of the state of nature are plausible but unsound. That means it's quite uncomfortable to uh, accept, you can say. But she agrees with the rejection of the different attributes or behaviors of the elite society. That means hierarchical society, okay, where there will be social strata, social order. But she also objects to Rousseau's celebration of savagery, which can be possible if one is more accustomed to the state of nature, because it is quite difficult to behave like wild creatures when you reside in a society, isn't it? So that's why Wollstonecraft says that Rousseau does not claim living as a savage. It can produce any particular virtue because you cannot live or reside in a society by being savage just like wild creatures, right? So we need to, we social animals or we human beings, we are bounded by some rules, regulations, or you can say some mutual agreements, isn't it? Some social or mutual agreements. So she claims that it is better to believe in God rather than believing in Rousseau because Rousseau's idea of society is just simply a return back to nature. We cannot reside in a society if we return back to nature. So this is the point of argument of Wollstonecraft against Rousseau. But then she also says that the real problem with society, she argues, is arbitrary and regal. So, do you know the word, the meaning of the word regal? It means grand, majestic, or you can say impressive too. Okay. So, according to her, the real problem with the society is grand. Okay, not so limited, because the real problem of the society is aristocratic and monarchical power. That means hierarchical orders. Because the poor leadership of kings and nobles, uh, it's according to Wollstonecraft. Okay, so she says that with poor leadership from kings and nobles, how can the ordinary man be wise? It is madness to put the lives and health of so many under the power of a single weak fellow creature. So she simply claims that the kings, the leader, the kings or nobles, they are very poor in case of leadership. And how can we expect the ordinary man to be wise when our leaders are so poor in their leadership? So it's not developing a great culture or a great society. So she basically criticizes professions which are in great subordination of rank and which constitutes great sovereign powers, by calling them highly injurious to morality. So she claims that these grand and great, officials or ranking orders are actually poor in their leaderships, or you can say they are highly injurious to morality. They have very low or degraded moral power. She said some examples such as, she cites a standing army, sailors, and naval gentlemen, even the clergy, and the rules of passion for gentlemen. She points out that the character of every man is, in some degree, formed by his profession, and argues against a society filled with professions that force men to look foolish. So, it's very intellectual way of attacking the society. Okay, how you can find in this example, she cites some renowned or prestigious ranks or professions by saying that it is their what, it is their profession which is building up their identity, right, which is building up their character. And that is her point of argument. It's a society just filled with professions. Everyone is playing their job role according to the professions, and no one is intellectual in their inner way. Everyone is looking foolish. Why? Because they are just following their job role as per professions. For example, she has already said that the kings and the nobles are so poor in leadership. Okay. They are so poor in their leadership. It's just they are getting some power just because of their ranks, just because of their professions. So this is what she says here. We will discuss more in context to this in our next slide. Wollstonecraft raised a strong claim in the difference between man and woman, and according to her, the major difference between man and woman is because how girls are raised, the socialization of the women or girls. And she also acknowledges the qualities of men when they complain about in women. And what is the only complaint about women by men is that the natural effect of ignorance. In other words, we can say this natural effect of ignorance is because society teaches women only to look good and beautiful, right? Women are always, expected by the society to look good in their physical appearance or by face, because looking good is all that matters when it comes to women. And that's why the natural effect of ignorance in case of women is quite natural, right? So women is equals to beautiful has what made by the society, right? So that's why she argues that education can shape them. Who? Women. Education can shape, so she argues that if education can shape each and every individual person, it should also reflect the opinions and manners of the society they live in. But unfortunately for women, what happens? Society strictly limits female education, right? So Wollstonecraft argues that the best education will enable the individual to attain such habits of virtue, as well as it will also render them to receive independence. So according to her, education should be provided to women in its fullest essence so that they can participate in the opinions and manners of the society and not just stay in some corners, being ignorant and being unknown to the entire scenario. She also objects how men write about female education. So basically, she is talking about men as writers. Okay. So Wollstonecraft says that they have made women more artificial and weak characters than they would otherwise have been. That means the fictionalizing of women characters are much more weaker than they are actually in their practical lives. Okay. So Rousseau is a particular target by Wollstonecraft in this entire essay. And that's why Wollstonecraft criticizes Rousseau's idealized view of women. Idealized view of women means utopian or, expected views of women. So what is that? According to Wollstonecraft, she criticizes Rousseau's idealized view of women. Why? Because it is represented in his character Sophie, who is captivating. That means who is quite attractive and one who can captivate men easily. So Sophie is one of the characters drawn by Rousseau in his essays, and Wollstonecraft has targeted that character. Okay, by uh, you know. Uh, claiming that she has represented it as Sophie's character as captivating but grossly unnatural. That means no doubt Sophie is a captivating women character, but she is unnatural. She objects to Rousseau's claim that a woman should be made of a coquettish slave in order to render her a more alluring object of desire. So she strongly claims against Rousseau's representation of women as just simply an object of desire. That means women should look, alluring, captivating, and attractive. So it's a sign of what? It's a sign of desires by men, right? This desiring attribute of women will captivate men, right? So according to Rousseau, women can, be represented, or women are always captivating in her idealized view of women, and that is what Wollstonecraft rejects here. Okay, Wollstonecraft also disapproved one of the books written by Dr. Gregory, and that is A Father's Legacy to His Daughters. Because she rejects this because Gregory believes women are naturally fond of dressing up, but Wollstonecraft asserts that a woman focuses on clothes because a well-dressed woman commands attention. She says Gregory tells women to lie about ways in which they are not typical, and that he also recommends a woman never tell her husband how much she loves him. Wollstonecraft finally rejects such deceptions. Okay, so what did you learn from here is that Gregory is a writer who has written an exceptional book called A Father's Legacy to His Daughters, where he has represented, women as, naturally fond of dressing up. Women should be very graceful, delicate, and women should only command attention. Even to the extent that she has made women so typical that she recommends that a woman should never tell her husband how much she loves him. That means a woman should not be expressive. Okay, so Wollstonecraft rejects these deceptions by stating that women are well dressed because they command attention, not because they are, built up under this stereotypical attention desiring captivation skills. Okay, Wollstonecraft also argues that man should not be made responsible for women's intellectual or moral growth. Rather, women should find their own ways. It will make them more strong, right? So if men become perfect at, maturing their own women, it will be more like, blind leading another blind, because we all are quite acquired and accustomed to the ideologies carried forward by the patriarchal, stereotypical ideals of the society, right? So that's why especially during the time period of Mary Wollstonecraft. She said it and made it a point that men should not be made responsible for women's growth. Wollstonecraft also claims a strong point in context to love and marriage. She says marriage should be based on friendship rather than on love, because one might choose a wrong person out of love, and that's why marriage should be a practical choice. because according to her, love is not always practical in case of taking decisions during marriage. And one of the theological perspectives from theological perspective, Wollstonecraft states that a woman's education prepares her for marriage, but in the Bible there is no marriage in heaven. So using this as a rhetorical question, she even asks the readers, how are women prepared to go to heaven given the education they receive? So she made a sarcastic rhetorical question. She made a sarcastic comment towards the society about the way women are treated in case of education. So she asks the society, the readers, that how are women prepared to go to heaven given the education that they receive? They are not even aware of what should be done rightfully or what is wrong, isn't it? So they, very specifically, you can say Wollstonecraft asserts women's feelings of inferiority which have increased because of this treatment. Okay, so she made a strong claim and opposition against the treatment of women in the society where women are intentionally, made to feel inferior by taking up decisions for themselves, by, maturing themselves, where men take this whole responsibility and so on. So therefore, she claims women must be given a room where they can groom themselves, they can develop themselves, and they must determine whether the whole sex stand in the intellectual scale. So she made an open discussion in this essay by stating out the point that women should come forward, women should take their own room, select their own room for their own development. Men should not take the responsibility of developing them, because in this process, in this responsibility, it is the treatment which is going wrong in case of women. Therefore, Wollstonecraft also suggests that men will not always be better than women. So it is a clear and plain objection, or you can say claim by Wollstonecraft, that if even if they are, women are given opportunities, women do not prove equals to men, and then men's superiority will be clear. So just as kings do not always prove to be better than the ordinary man, similarly women will according to Wollstonecraft, men will not always be better than women. That means she made a proposal that let men and women come at the same page, at the same ground. They battle with each other and then they decide whether they are good in this particular criteria or not. Okay, so at least for this, equality, they should be given the right to education. Why? There is a prejudice regarding the inferiority of women. Let them fight and let them decide on their own point. It is only this treatment of women which will make them strong, where they can come out at the on the same page of equality. Okay. Wollstonecraft published this essay in 1792, and at that time, women in England, they faced many choices. Even girls had some limited scope of education. Uh, Probably the only the wealthy family were allowed to send their daughters to school, but others remained ignorant of all the education. So it is during that period of time, after observing this kind of loopholes in the society, she has decided to publish and write about the issues through the essay. Even in England, in the late 18th and early 19th centuries, women had no legal rights. That means a girl was the property of her father until she married, at which point she became the property of her husband. So can you see how during the 18th and 19th centuries, women were just treated as a as a as a mere piece of property, first by father and then by husband. So obviously there is no option for career of women. Okay, while women in poorer families often needed to work to contribute to the household, work was often unhealthy and occurred in illegal circumstances. Women were allowed to work in illegal circumstances. Only poor families had to go out, for sustenance, for livelihood, but the works were very degraded for women. So we can see that Wollstonecraft's life demonstrated many of the challenges that women faced. Even her family suffered because of her father's poor financial choices, and no one could stop him because he was the head of the household. She needed to support herself, but her job opportunities were so limited to what she described as the menial work of a governess or running her own small school. So we can see that Mary Wollstonecraft herself was under this circumstance that she decided to stand up for the rights of women, and that is how Wollstonecraft, drew on our personal experience as well as societal attitudes through the essay A Vindication of the Rights of Women. So in this, you can see Wollstonecraft was writing near the end of the Enlightenment period. Remember, Enlightenment period is a period when you are in the state of having some knowledge or understanding. So Wollstonecraft was writing in this period, and which was even a period of history in the English literature, right? So we can say that Wollstonecraft, through the essay A Vindication of the Rights of Women, has actually tried to enlighten and aware the women regarding their own rights. Okay, even she has objected some strong writers, philosophical thinkers such as Rousseau. So definitely she was a very defiant, and she had a voice which stood for all other women, for all other suffering women in her time period. So that's it. That is the reason why this particular essay is considered as a magnum opus. That means one of the magnificent piece of works. Okay. And finally, we conclude the discussion on the critical essay, A Vindication of the Rights of Women. Hope you have enjoyed understanding and analyzing the point of views, especially in the context of the chapter 1 and 2, written by renowned writer Mary Wollstonecraft. If you have any queries or any suggestions, you can definitely use the comment box. Thank you once again.